they say migration, there are a lot of different stuffs that we are going to discuss. See, when it comes to migration, there are various components that are involved. Like we have people, process, tools, technologies, and we need to adhere to some strategies while we are migrating, right? And we also need to follow some methodologies. So we will get to understand all these stuffs in very detailed way. And when it comes to migration phases, we also have a lot of different stages like discover phase, assessment phase, and then we need to provide the assessment report, and followed by migration phase, modernization phase, and optimize phase. So there are various phases that are there, like evaluation, planning, designing, and so on. And we also have a lot of different processes that we need to follow. And this processes or process that we need to follow will also be discussed. And there are different strategies that we can take when it comes to migration. So you might have heard about the 7 R's, the re-hosting, re-platforming, re-architecting, and so on. So we will discuss these stuffs in very detailed way. And when it comes to migration, it's not about one single migration phase, right? We have to go through different phases like discovery, assessment, and so on. And for each of these phases, we might have to use different tools, but one or two tools might have all the different elements that you need to do a full-fledged migration, but some tools are specialized in certain areas. So we'll get to understand which tools will be suitable for what are the options. And I also have got a lot of templates and run books which you can leverage for your migration stuff. So I've got a lot of tools and stuff that I got. So I will share all these playbook with you. So this is mainly for managing and governing your project end to end. I will be providing access to all these tool sets, how you can use these templates. I will also explain what are these templates for and how you can use them in different phases. Right. Finally, we will have migration standards or migration best practices that we can follow. And either you are playing a migration architect role or migration engineer role based on your years of experience. So you will get all the necessary inputs to become a member of a migration engineer team, or to become a migration solution architect, right? So without wasting time, we will get into each of these elements that we are going to discuss. So when it comes to migration, so people think that if we focus only on tools, like learning the tools that is used for migration. See, earlier, Amazon AWS leveraged a third-party tool called Cloud Endure. Now it is more or less integrated option within AWS Marketplace, or AWS has its own migration tool called MGN. Okay, and they also have separate tools for database migration, server migration, and so on. But they have a separate integrated end-to-end offering for migration, and they have the tool called MGN. That is what we will be seeing in practical. We will also see the practical for how the other migration scenarios work, like how the import and export can be done, and how you can use the database migration service for migrating. So when it comes to migration, there are different stuff that we can migrate. So you can do a lift and shift of the entire server from a virtual machine to a AWS EC2 instance, or from a physical server to a EC2 instance. And you can also just move the data, migrate the data from on-premises to the cloud. You can do database migration. You can either migrate just the data or the entire schema as well as the data. You have separate tools available for re-platforming or application migration. Even you can do a virtual desktop migration VDI solution from on-premises or from third party like Citrix or whatever to Amazon workspaces. And we have certain tools which can be used for just service level migration. Okay, but that is little a rare scenario. But then these days environments are turning towards microservices, and we might have to just migrate certain services into a containerized environment on the cloud platform. So migration can be this is a generic term, right? Migration is moving something from one location to another location, or from it's like it's a generic English term, right? Migration. And migration, there are different strategies that we can apply. But when it comes to migration phases, okay, so AWS has got its own processes or phases, but then in general, we follow certain phases that can also be used for your AWS migration. So when you want this migration to be successful, you need to focus on four different areas. The number one is the skill set, then the tools, the right tools to migrate your environment. Then you need to follow the right strategy, the methodology for migrating. Then you have the process. So people, process, and the technology, all these components have to work hand in hand. If one of them fails, then the entire migration will be in a jeopardy, right? So you cannot have a successful migration if one of them fail. See, on a very high level, I mean, the entire 2 day session is completely around migration and disaster recovery, right? So we are going to continuously discuss all these stuffs again and again. But on a very high level, we need to have the right skilled people. The skill set is very, very important. And most of the organization, the service provider organization, like Indian organizations like TCS or HCL or Wipro or any companies, so what they generally do is they generally have a specialized team for migration. They call it as Cloud Center of Excellence or Cloud Migration Factory or Cloud Migration Center of Excellence. So in general, it is a excellence team specified, I mean, focused on some specialization, right? The migration specialization. So you will have a migration factory team, or they call it as Cloud Center of Excellence for migration, or migration excellence team, or migration center, cloud migration factory. So different terminologies might be used, but the important takeaway is that most of the service provider organization, they have specialized team who can do end-to-end migration, starting from discovery to optimizing the environment. They can do end-to-end all the activities from preparation, planning, validation, and optimizing and securing the environment. This team is specialized on doing that. Okay, and that is what most of the organizations are looking at, because they want to migrate towards cloud, or they have already migrated some portion of the environment, and they have seen a lot of delay, or they might have seen a lot of gaps in their processes, or the procedures that they are following. So they want some kind of guidance from an expert provider or an expert vendor who can help them in doing a migration in a seamless way. So people is very, very important, and their skills and their learning, the exposure is going to help a lot in migrating different workload to AWS platform. And choosing the right tools definitely is important. See, customer might have different workloads. They might have mainframe systems, they might have SAP workload, they might have Linux, Solaris, and different flavors of operating systems, and different hardware technologies might be involved. So you might have to choose the right tools to do the assessment plus the migration, right? So choosing the right tools is important. I will help you with the list of tools that you can use it for discovery, assessment, migration, modernizations. For all of these different phases, you have different tools, and certain tools can be used across all these phases, and certain tools can only be used for example, you have a separate unique requirement. You need to migrate mainframe systems. You have a requirement to migrate Solaris system to Amazon EC2 instances. So in such cases, which tools will help you to do the discovery, collecting the information that is needed for migration, and how to do a migration will all, I mean, these are all separate opportunities, and some tools can work with Windows, Linux, mainframe, Solaris, and all those things. Certain tools will be uniquely covering those particular aspects. So we will see those tools in few minutes. So the methodology, right? Methodology is important. See, people always stick to technical requirement. When I say technical requirement, they will go and understand in a qualitative way or in a quantitative way how much CPU, how much memory, how much consumption, what is the current utilization. They will gather all the performance characteristics or performance monitoring data. So people will be looking at the technical requirement. Yeah, definitely you need to get those information. So you need to have a complete configuration management database of the environment that you are planning to migrate. But besides that, you need to understand the business, how exactly they work, what is their change calendar, and what is the time that they don't allow any execution. So what is the crucial time for that particular business, and you need to understand the business. Then I will also help you how to build a business case. So we need to create a business case because we need to measure, right? Currently, what is the situation and where we are targeting, and after migration to the target, what kind of measurement we have, what are the metrics we are going to look at, how do we understand whether the migration was successful for the customer, and what kind of checks we have, what kind of checklist we need to follow, how do we go and do a user acceptance testing, system integration testing, and we also have to get those information. See, building a business case in very large migrations, or large to large, very large migrations, I'm talking about more than 300 500 servers migration. So definitely you need to have a special budget for that. See, without that you cannot just go and do it. So generally what organizations do is they go and get a executive sponsorship for this migration. Sometimes what they do is they will tell us to show some proof of concept, or they will ask us to do a pilot migration, and they want to look at that. Okay, so they will ask us to showcase how do we execute the migration, what kind of challenges we might come across, and help us understand what kind of performance betterment we will get, and all those things. So customers will expect this, and most of the service provider organization, they will have a demo environment, or they will do a proof of concept, or they will show a pilot in one of their test application, or one of their less critical application. So they will do a proof of concept, and they will showcase what kind of approach they will take, and what is the end-to-end strategy that they will follow when they migrate it. And in order to show this, a lot of organizations, they might have a migration dashboard. So this might be managed by the project management team or the portfolio management team, and you will have a complete visibility on where exactly we are, and how many workloads we have migrated, what are the different phases we have, what are the different waves we have, and where we are currently, and what are the risks, issues identified, and what are the lessons learned documentation we have. So all these elements will be captured, and we'll have a complete dashboard. And when it comes to migration, when it comes to moving out of the data center to the public cloud, customers always look for the total cost of ownership. They want to build a business case, they want to understand what exact cost benefit they are going to get. Okay, so security aspect, scalability aspect, flexibility, and all those things, most of the people nowadays, they understand it because they are used to cloud. Either they are using software as a service or platform as a service. Now people are used to that. But then at the ground level, if you want to get an executive sponsorship, or if you want to get a budget for the migration, then they need to understand what kind of cost impact it is going to make, this migration is going to bring in, right? So for which, like, you need to have a TCO tool set. I have I'll explain you what are the different tools available, and how you can use those tools for deriving the total cost of ownership as part of the migration. See, I can keep extending this list, but on a very high level, most of the migration methodologies, they go through all these stages. But in some cases, customer might already know their application will work on public cloud platform, and they will say just go and migrate it, you don't have to do POC, pilot, and all. We know that our application will be supported in the public cloud, and we will just go and migrate it, right? So processes, when I say processes, see, just like that, we cannot migrate an environment. We need to understand their licensing, we need to understand their change management procedure, we need to understand their change freeze calendar, right? So some of the organization might not allow you to do any activity in the December month or March month, when they do a financial closure, or when they do a when they have a year end holiday time. And we need to have a lot of knowledge management database, right? Lessons learned, and what do you call, issues, risks, and all those registers has to be maintained. And not just that, so a lot of SOPs, like your standard operating procedures, your RAID log, risks, assumptions, issues, defects, all those things has to be captured in a centralized place. So they call it as RAID log. RAID is nothing but risk log, issue log, sorry, assumption log, and then issue log, and the defects log. So they will capture these things in a separate template. I will also give you a lot of templates around migration. I also have a RASI matrix on how you can follow the migration and so on. But for now, these are the four important critical element that you need to look at when you start the migration. And let's get into the phases now. After understanding that who are going to involve which people, who are the people who are involved in this migration, which tools are going to be used, what is the methodology that we need to follow. Either we are going to do it in waves, how many workload we have got, and how critical are those. What is the priority for each of these workloads? Why we are exiting from the data center? What is the business driver? So all these things has to be understood, and then finally you also need to understand the processes that the customer follows. Okay, what is their change calendar, where exactly they store their document, how they collaborate, and then have these information. So all these things has to be understood in a very detailed way. Now let's